Your mother. Oh, what's up, everybody? It's your favorite boy. It's Big Tony. Don't worry, Mr. Willie. He's just in the bathroom, so he's okay. All right. He'll be back in a few minutes to read with you guys. So I thought I'd take over, but everyone knows Big Tony only went to third grade, so probably not my strong suit. I would say. Some might say. I don't know if I would say that. I could probably read for use, but I will not. So we're gonna get in. We're gonna get into it, into the quote of the day. The quote of the day comes from a woman named Margaret Heffernan. She said, "You cannot fix a problem you refuse to acknowledge." I heard from a little birdie that today, your boy Ralph, he was going to try to fix some problems that the boys have been having on the island, which brings us to the daily objective. This is what you're trying to get done by the end of the day. This is what you need to do, and you better do it. I'm not playing with you. You better do it. Anyway, the daily objective is I can explain what Ralph observes about the civilization the boys have created and how he tries to resolve it. Big Tony has a lot of problems all the time, and trust me, I resolve them. But today, you're going to need to tell me how Ralph tries to resolve the problems that's been happening on the island. That's your goal. That's it. It's simple. So let's get to it. Okay, see you later, Big Tony. Hey. So we're going to jump right in. I know what you're thinking. I cannot understand this material if I don't understand these complex vocabulary terms. So it must be time for active vocabulary. Okay, everyone. So we have two very amazing new vocabulary terms to introduce today. The first one is rational. The definition of rational is based in intelligence and logic instead of emotion. So it's based in intelligence and logic, not emotion. A way this could be used in a sentence. I was furious when I discovered that my sister had stolen my favorite watch, but my mother assured me that there was a rational explanation. So now what I want you to do is to go ahead and use the word rational in a sentence of your own. So our second vocabulary term today that we are learning is hysterical. Hysterical means caused by uncontrolled extreme emotion. The play was so entertaining that we became hysterical, laughing and crying at the same time. I want to make a special note. Oftentimes when you say the word hysterical, like, oh, that was hysterical. It was so funny, almost like it was so amazing. But hysterical can also be a negative thing. You can be so scared that you're hysterical. You know, you have uncontrolled extreme emotion. So hysterical can both be a good thing and bad thing. It just means that you have uncontrollable emotions. So what I want you to do now is to use the word hysterical in a sentence of your own. Okay, everyone. So now would be the time. If you do not have your Lord of the Flies book out, go ahead and get it out and open up to page 78. Pause and do that now if you need to. Okay, you need to read along with me. I'm going to ask you to go back in the book and answer questions. So you're going to need that book. And remember, when you read with me, you get better at reading. Our focus for these pages. What is the mood or tone of the assembly? So if you remember in yesterday's lesson, the last thing that happened was the hunters came back and they let the fire go out. And there was a boat that went by. So they could have been rescued. But because the hunters let the fire go out, it did not. So Ralph says right at the end that he is going to call an assembly at nighttime, and they're going to try to figure out all the messes that have been starting to create. So your focuses for these pages, what is the mood or tone of this assembly? And the second one is, what are the problems that Ralph is addressing? Focus on those as we read. Okay, everyone, so we are going to start in the middle of page 78 at the sun is in his eyes. Go ahead and pause and get there if you need to. The sun in his eyes reminded him how time was passing. So he took the conch down from the tree and examined the surface. Exposure to the air had bleached the yellow and pink to near white. and transparency. Ralph felt a kind of affectionate reverence or respect for the conch. Even though he had fished the thing out of a lagoon himself, he faced the place of assembly and put the conch to his lips. The others were waiting for this and came straight away. Those who were aware that a ship had passed the island while the fire was out were subdued by the thought of Ralph's anger, while those, including the little ones who do not know, were impressed by the general air of solemnity, which means like seriousness. The place of assembly filled quickly. Jack, Simon, Maurice, most of the hunters on Ralph's right, the rest on the left under the sun. Piggy came and stood outside the triangle. This indicated that he wished to listen but would not speak, and Piggy intended it as a gesture of disapproval. We're going to reread that little passage I just read. Here's a quote from it. The others were waiting for this and came straight away. The place of assembly, so where they were meeting, filled quickly. Jack, Simon, Maurice, most of the hunters on Ralph's right. So Jack, Simon, and Maurice were on the right, and the rest stood on the left under the sun. Okay, so everyone to the right is in his darkness. Everyone else is under the sun. So my question to you is, what do you notice about who is under the light and who is in the darkness in the assembly? What might the author be trying to imply about these characters through this? So Jack, Simon, Maurice are they're standing in the darkness, whereas the rest, the little ones and Piggy and Ralph, stood under the sun on his left side. What might the author be trying to tell us about these characters through this scene? Okay, so some possible answers. The author might be implying that the characters in the dark have lost their innocence, while the characters in the light are still innocent. The author might also be implying that the characters in the dark have bad intentions or that bad things are coming for them. So it might be a way to foreshadow that bad things might happen in the future to those characters. Okay, so continuing at the bottom of page 78, at the thing is, we need an assembly. So Ralph speaks. He says, the thing is, we need an assembly. No one said anything, but the faces turned to Ralph were intent. He flourished the conch. He had learnt as a practical business that fundamental statements like this had to be said at least twice before everyone understood them. One had to sit, attracting all eyes to the conch, and drop words like a heavy, round stones among the little groups that crouched or squatted. He was searching his mind for simple words so that even the little ones would understand what the assembly was about. Later, perhaps, practiced debaters, Jack, Maurice, Piggy, would use their whole art to twist the meeting. But now, at the beginning, the subject of the debate must be laid out clearly. We need an assembly, not for fun, not for laughing and falling off the log. The group of little ones on the twister giggled and looked at each other. Not for making jokes or for... He lifted the conch in an effort to find the compelling word. For cleverness, not for these things, but to put things straight. He paused for a moment. I've been alone. By myself I went, thinking, what's what? I know what we need. An assembly to put things straight. And first of all, I'm speaking. He paused for a moment and automatically pushed back his hair. Piggy tiptoed to the triangle, his ineffectual protest made, and joined the others. Ralph went on. We have lots of assemblies. Everybody enjoys speaking and being together. We decide things, but they don't get done. We were going to have water brought from the stream and left in those coconut shells under fresh leaves. So it was for a few days. Now there's no water. The shells are dry. People drink from the river. There was a murmur of assent. Not that there's anything wrong with drinking from the river. I mean, I'd sooner have water from that place, the pool where the waterfall is, than out of the old coconut shell. Only we said we'd have the water brought, and now not. There were only 2 full shells there this afternoon. He licked his lips. Then there's huts, shelters. The murmur swelled again and died away. You mostly sleep in shelters. Tonight, except for Sam and Eric up by the fire, you'll all sleep there. Who built the shelters? Clamors rose at once. Everybody had built the shelters. Ralph had to wave the conch once more. Wait a minute! I mean, who built all 3? We all built the first one. 4 of us, the second one. And me and Simon built the last one over there. That's why it's so tottery. No, don't laugh. The shelter might fall down if the rain comes back. We'll need those shelters then. He paused and cleared his throat. There's another thing. We chose those rocks right along beyond the bathing pool as a lavatory bathroom. That was sensible, too. The tide cleans the place up. You little ones know about that. There were sniggers, which is like little laughs, here and there, and swift glances. Now people seem to use anywhere, even near the shelters in the platform. You little ones, when you're getting fruit, if you're taken short, the assembly roared. I said if you're taken short, you keep away from the fruit. That's dirty. Laughter rose again. I said that's dirty. He plucked at his stiff gray shirt. That's really dirty. If you're taken short, you go right along the beach to the rocks, see? Piggy held out his hand for the conch, but Ralph shook his head. His speech was planned, point by point. We've all got to use the rocks again. This place is getting dirty. He paused. The assembly, sensing a crisis, was tensely expectant. And then, about the fire. Ralph let out his spare breath with a little gasp that was echoed by his audience. Jack started to chip a piece of wood with his knife and whispered something to Robert, who looked away. The fire is the most important thing on the island. How can we ever be rescued except by luck if we don't keep a fire going? Is a fire too much for us to make? He flung out his arm. Look at us. How many are we? And yet we can't keep a fire going to make smoke. Don't you understand? Can't you see we ought to die before we let the fire out? There was a self-conscious giggling among the hunters. Ralph turned on them passionately. You hunters! You can laugh, but I tell you the smoke is more important than the pig, however often you kill one. Do all of you see? He spread his arms wide and turned to the whole triangle. We've got to make smoke up there, or die. He paused, feeling for his next point. And another thing, someone called out. Too many things! There came a mutter of agreement. Ralph overrode them. And another thing. We nearly set the whole island on fire, and we waste time rolling rocks and making little cooking fires. Now I say this and make it a rule because I'm chief. We won't have a fire anywhere but on the mountain, ever. There was a row immediately. Boys stood up and shouted, and Ralph shouted back. Because if you want a fire to cook fish or crab, you can jolly well go up the mountain. That way we'll be certain. Hands were reaching for the conch in the light of the setting sun. He held on and leapt on the trunk. All this I meant to say. Now I've said it. You voted me for chief. Now you do what I say. They quieted slowly and at last were seated again. Ralph dropped down and spoke in his ordinary voice. So remember, the rocks for a lavatory. Keep the fire going and smoke showing as a signal. Don't take the fire from the mountain. Take your food up there. Jack stood up, scowling in the gloom, and held out his hands. I haven't finished yet, but you've talked and talked. I've got the conch. Jack sat down, grumbling. Then the last thing. This is what people can talk about. He waited till the platform was very still. Things are breaking up. I don't understand why. We began well. We were happy. And then he moved the conch gently, looking beyond them at nothing, remembering the beastie, the snake, the fire, the talk of fear. Then people started to get frightened. I have two final questions for you guys about a line that was just read. So when speaking to the assembly, Ralph says right there at the end on 82, things are breaking up. I don't understand why. So my first question to you, what is one example of something that is breaking up that he speaks about throughout the pages? So he lists like 4 things that are breaking up. What is one of the things that he listed? So possible answers might have been that the drinking water isn't filled, the shelters are not made very well, the boys are using the bathroom all over the island rather than where they said they should, and of course, the fact that nobody's been keeping the fire running. So my second question to you guys, given that Ralph mentions multiple different breakdowns, what do you think he means by the word things? He says things are breaking up. What does he mean by things? Take a guess at it. Okay, so Ralph, when he says things are breaking up, might be implying that the civilization itself, their whole civilization, might be breaking up or breaking down.